What is up, everybody? My name is Nick and I am a super nice guy. Today I'm here to make a part 2 in this design process series, and that is moving from sketches to wireframes. It'll be a direct continuation from my last video in which we sketched out some ideas in a very quick, rapid, and lo-fi way. We will be taking those sketches with some pseudo feedback laid on top of them and then move them into a standard design file in Figma and start thinking about some of the content needs, the UX needs, and holding off there before we get into visual design, which will be the next step, and then ultimately a realistic prototype, which will lock in this very real one-to-one design that we are working towards. But before I do that, I did want to call out one thing, and that is you will notice the walls in my bedroom are now gray. I've painted them flagstone. I did not like the blue previously, so I hope now the happiness that I feel sitting in this room is going to be coming through in these videos for many years to come. It is a little unfortunate that I didn't have these walls painted gray in time for my creating interesting gray color values video, but if you want to check that out, here it is somewhere now. Without further ado, let's jump into making some wireframes. Alrighty, here we go. We are inside of Figma. So this should look familiar. This is just the sketches we ended up with in the last video, sketching these ideas out. I did lay in some quick feedback, again, pretending we had a review process where we took this to our team and we talked about things. We set realistic requirements and features and ultimately talked about the business goals here. This is where we would land. So what I've said is the first concept isn't as strong as option 3, so we can kill that one. The second concept is just not robust enough. There isn't really much happening. So 3 is the clear winner. We're not going to wireframe all 3 of these. We have more direction now, more clarity. We are going to wireframe the third option here. And for the remainder of this project, that is our North Star. So here we go. So in theory, we can just delete those 2 right there. We do not need them. Now, since I am sort of trying to emulate this in a real world situation, I will just mention quickly, naming your pages is super important to stay organized. This is an approach I've seen occurring in multiple organizations, designers from places like Google and Instacart and so on. So just making your pages very clear that they're design files, they are not locked in, what is being worked on, and what is the date, the last date these things were worked on. All this is very helpful information for staying organized. All right, so now we're just gonna drop in a frame here. So if I just press F and then come over here to phone sizes, I'm still working in 375 by 812. I really don't have a specific rhyme or reason to go larger or smaller than this. This was the de facto size in iOS design for a really long time. So for the purposes of this wireframe, this is what I'll be using. I did forget to mention here, so the feedback that was on the chosen direction was basically everything looks great. This is a strong winner. This is what we should work towards, except we do want to include the ability to add more cards in here, which is not prevalent or currently existing in this sketch. It was in option number 2, so we've merged that idea into this one here. Okay, so a beauty of this is we could type out all these features and requirements, but it doesn't really make sense to type up this in a Word format, but you can certainly do that too if you want to work that way. It sometimes helps to have text outlines. All right, so let's start with the page title. Let's just type out wallet. I'm gonna make this 40 pixels. With type scales, in theory, this is an app that already exists and we're just adding to it. There should already be a type scale we're adhering to. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to sort of consider 40 being the largest, and I'll step down in 8 pixel increments from there as we get smaller and need smaller sizes. So we have wallet here, and then this is going to be my plus button. It is just text. Again, you can bring in icons. Icons do speed up time, but for the purposes of this, I just want to be as lo-fi as possible. I don't want to trick people into thinking they're seeing final visual designs. I just want to communicate more clearly than what the sketches do, what we're trying to get at. So here we have wallet and a plus button, and then I will add in what'll be our credit card. And again, we don't want to make this credit card look like an actual credit card visually designed, but we do want to communicate that we have a card name on it. We have a privacy hidden card number with the last 4 visible. And then we do have a chip element that will give the card a nice little aesthetic. So what I'm gonna do is just alt drag this down here, option command right bracket, because that was below it. And then I will come to the size, drop it down maybe 2 steps to 24, and then make it regular. I am working with San Francisco Display here. We're just gonna pretend this is an iOS native app. So I'm sticking to the actual typography and font choices that would exist in the visual design phase. But at this point, again, really, you could use real type or you don't have to necessarily. Again, it's just whatever your preferences are. It will save some time if you can adhere to the actual one-to-one font styles though. So here, let's say we can press option 8 is a little trick to get that password dot there. So we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll copy that. Maybe we add a space in there. Okay, so we've just typed that out there, privacy hidden, and then the last 4, we'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4. And actually, maybe we pull this down again and bring it to the front. And for this, we go down 1 step, although that doesn't seem like enough. So maybe we go down 2 steps for the card name and essentially add to a 3rd step for the card numbers. Now, what I'll do is press shift right parenthesis and zoom to 100% so I know what these sizes are actually going to look at in 1-to-1. So here we go. This is going to be card name, and then we have the numbers there. And then for this chip, again, we don't want to get hung up too much on details. I'll just come into here, reduce that a little bit, and maybe make it round. And I guess that's all I'm going to do for this card. So let's turn some of these into auto layout. I do think it does help to have some structure to this, specifically with margins, padding, spacing systems, because if not, it will just look sloppy, and that's not what we're going for. So let's clean this up a little bit. I will say, let's just go 24 padding on left and right, and we'll do that all around. And then I'll nudge this over here. For this, I'll probably just turn it into auto layout because I like to work that way. Ultimately, this only stands to benefit myself. I've just come to expect auto layout to exist rather than something be simply grouped together, because the spacing is more intentional. If something is auto laid out and placed in specific ways, you know that the spacing was thought out. Whereas if you just clicked a group, no one necessarily took time to lock in these actual spaced out elements. But again, we are just working on wireframes. So for the purposes of this, we will call that a day. Again, we don't have to round these, but I think it just looks a little nicer to communicate the fact that this is a real card. That's all I'm trying to communicate here. This is a real credit card. That's what we're trying to achieve. Cool, so next we have some content blocks where we list out balance, a number, and an available balance total. So we're just going to create that little card here. So we know we're gonna want 2 of these, and we're just going to keep all of these elements spaced. We'll say 16 apart might work good. And if we want that to be even, what I'll need to do is quickly, there's a number of things, but if I just space it to 16, 16, and then I scale them together and then make sure we fall in that 24 pixel margins from left to right, and then we are good to go. Okay, so that was really just to get spacing. So in theory, we can delete that one in just a second, but let's say we want these to be a little bit lighter, and now we will add some text. So we're just gonna borrow this text style we already created, which was 16. So for this, we're going to need something that says balance. We're going to need some sort of dollar amount, and then I'll just type the available and the available amount. So I have those here. I've just auto framed them together because again, it speeds things up really fast for me, and then I set them essentially just 4 apart, which isn't much at all. And then we're gonna go ahead and also say we know we're gonna need payment due in, and then this one is 2 days. So the beauty of having these as 2 separate text boxes is that we can come in here and add emphasis to whichever ones we want. So if I wanted to bold those specifically, or 2 days, which according to our sketches is written quite larger, so we will come up here and make it quite larger and style it a little bit differently. I think I just bolded these really quick and it doesn't look so good. We're going to keep everything semi-bold at the most because this is so large. It might actually do better as a medium. So there we go. Very quick type decisions, but not hanging up on them long. So let's just move these into this box and see how these will fit. And it looks like we're going to have no issues. So I do want to make sure, because I'm going to turn these into auto layout. This is 156 by, actually we should just make this a perfect square. 156 by 156. We will select these elements and the background, and if you do that and press Shift A, it will actually merge that background and apply the relevant auto layout styles to it, which is awesome. So it does switch to hug, so we'll scale this out and then go back to 156. And then again, if we click into this, we need to change this also back to fixed height, and we would just stick to 156, and there we go. So now we can tweak these a little bit. All right, so I've just made some changes here, such as reversing the emphasis. I'm going to say we need to emphasize dollar amount available and balance because the user needs to see that more importantly than the title of balance available. And then we've made 2 days large because payment due in is something very important. Maybe we did user testing and they said they are scared of due dates and they don't want to miss payments. We've made that large. These are the decisions we're making here. We're not saying it's large because it looks better, because typographically we want this to have a bigger, better feel. We're not saying any of those things. Cool, so we've made those 2 sections there, and essentially for this one below it, the weekly activity, we're going to want to borrow sort of the same style here. So balance will be weekly activity. So I'll just Alt drag this down here, and we're going to change the word balance to weekly activity, and this way we have that consistent hierarchy where these styles are the card titles. I've actually also changed some of these around, so this is hugging and it's now 140 in height. Again, height doesn't matter so much while we're wireframing, but I do think it just fills the space a little bit better, because the better your wireframes look, the more information people will be able to pull from them. So for this one, we actually don't need this extra detail, this dollar amount, because this is going to be a chart. So for this, I'm not even going to worry about it. I'm going to just draw in a quick vector here. Okay, cool. I just hit the fast forward button because it was getting a little repetitive. So here we go. I've just added in the remaining content, the recent activity, although I do realize I missed the ability to view all, which would take us to the transactions page. So that is important. We do want that in there. So I've just created the list with some basic type styles, and I did include a quick navigation here. I don't think it's super important. The content is a little bit more important here, and I wanted to show more of this. The phone could extend longer too, essentially, but I just wanted to show in the navigation here that it is an actual page and it is in its active state. So I've just included that as a pseudo component here. So with this wireframe, it's really great. Essentially, we're finished, right? We've taken our sketch to a wireframe. We did it in, again, about 10 minutes. So a 10-minute sketch exercise, a review, 10 minutes, and this screen has been fleshed out a little bit more. This screen can be helpful for a number of things. Again, now we can bring it back to review again with more people. We can even get it in front of customers. So if a customer can look at this, the information is clear enough where they can give some feedback on it and understand what the app experience might look like. The other thing is we've just spent almost no time at all, so we can take this, get approval on it, and move into visual design and say, this looks good, this has the things we need, we're good to go, let's build it. So really, I have nothing else more to add here. This is our wireframe. So in the next video, we will be taking this and actually creating styles, deciding on visual styles and direction, and make it look more like a real app and finish up our design process. All right, we did it. Now we just made a wireframe from our sketches that we had our team look at and review. Our design process is moving right along, and in no time we will have a fully fleshed out design and then eventually a working prototype that any engineer can take and look at and understand exactly how it should work. So if you got something from this video, please remember to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video where we take these wireframes and move into visual design. Also, I hope the addition of the gray walls in the background really comes through on this video because I am so happy that blue is gone. I don't think there's anything else to cover here, so until next time, super nice guy out.